Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. The Road to Autonomy is brought to you in part by Stantec Generation AV. Stantec Generation AV combines some of the most experienced AV experts in the industry with the resources of a global engineering firm. Stantec Generation AV provides education, consulting, assessment, and guidance to any industry interested in autonomous vehicles. Learn more at stantec.com. Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. I am your host, Grayson Brulte. On today's episode, we're absolutely honored to have Chen-Ping Yu, co-founder and CEO of Phiar. Welcome to the podcast, Chen-Ping.
Great to be here. Thank you.
I'm so happy you're here. I'm a big fan of your company because AR is the future and you're doing really cool, amazing things at Phiar. Chen-Ping, you received your doctorate as a Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science from Stony Brook University on Long Island. Stony Brook has an incredible math program, which was once cherished by the legendary investor, Jim Simmons. What was your experience at Stony Brook like, and what did you learn?
Stony Brook, not that long ago, about 4 years ago. It was a very interesting time, I think. I really enjoyed my time there. I did my computer vision AI PhD, and also my work there was interesting because I started around 2011. That was before the boom of AI, parentheses, deep learning. So a lot of my work was split between conventional computer vision and also deep learning. That's after 2013, 2014. So that definitely made my research experience at Stony Brook very interesting because of that mix. And I really liked my lab there. I think everyone worked really hard, very smart people. The lab overall published really well at top conferences. And I think the reputation of the lab is pretty good. So I was fortunate to have the opportunity to work with the lab.
Because there's something in the water over at Stony Brook. There's so many incredible individuals that have gone through Stony Brook that have gone on to do incredible things in the world. So you go from Stony Brook and you go on to become a postdoctoral research fellow at Harvard in the neural lab. What was that change like going from Long Island to Boston?
So I thought Long Island was cold enough until I got to Boston. It was capitalized letters cold. I actually went to high school in Massachusetts. And at that time, whenever people said how cold Massachusetts overall is, I didn't feel much. But I think definitely there's a difference between high school and a postdoc in terms of age and how cold affects us. So I think that was definitely one of the major things I felt about Boston is the weather. Beautiful city. And I also enjoyed my time at the Harvard Vision Sciences Lab. It was very interesting also because I had the pleasure to work with a group of cognitive and neuroscientists to really combine what they have learned about the brain with deep learning computer vision so that we really try to do something that is literally brain-inspired deep learning to make deep learning architecture really similar to what the brain's architecture organization is. And instead of optimizing for the accuracy, like most computer vision researchers, we try to optimize for the similarity of the architecture and see what the neural network would learn. So that was a very interesting project, learned a lot out of it. But also the other thing about Boston was how difficult it was to drive there. The traffic pattern was very complex. People used to joke about it and tell me that, oh, you didn't know that Boston's roads were just really pavements on top of horse routes? And that was funny, and I can actually see where that came from.
You're learning about the brain. You're learning how to drive in Boston. They drive in the breakdown lane. They don't stop. You got roundabouts and all sorts of interesting experiences in driving in Boston. But during that driving experience, you had one of these aha moments that inspired you to develop an AR solution for maps. Could you talk about that, please?
Yes. I'm the type of person that incredibly relies on the use of GPS navigation when I drive. I never remember how to get to one place to another. I mean, I stayed in Boston for about a year. At the end of that time, I still didn't know how to drive from my then apartment to my lab because I just usually follow GPS navigation. And that kind of dumbed me down in a way. Maybe that also does to some other people, but definitely to me. And that's the issue because every time when I'm reading what the navigation is telling me or hearing what the navigation is telling me, combined with Boston's complex traffic pattern, it just did not work. I made wrong turns all the time. I also, a number of occasions where I almost hit somebody because I was trying to read the map and figuring out which road in front of me is really the road that my map was telling me. So to a point that I got so frustrated, I thought, because for me, when I use GPS navigation, I put my phone on the windshield. So the camera was already facing forward, so I can see the display facing me. I thought, why couldn't someone just show me my route by overlaying that to the actual camera feed instead of drawing that on a map, which I still have to figure out? That's when I thought, wait, maybe I shouldn't need for somebody to do this. I can try to do this because my background is in computer vision AI, and I can build this world understanding engine to be able to overlay things onto the real world. And that's why I thought, since I was a postdoc, there wasn't too much that I'm leaving behind in terms of anything. So I thought that was a good opportunity for me to try this.
You're starting to build this. What was it like when you had this idea, you've had this incredible background in computer vision. What were like the first steps? Did you just say, okay, well, let's just start coding and away we go? Did you have to pre-map anything? What were those really early foundational days like?
Foundational days was we had to prototype. Well, we first, of course, had to think about what kind of technologies are needed to make camera navigation happen. It wasn't until later that we called it augmented reality navigation, AR navigation. It was camera navigation. And so we were able to figure out, okay, this is the technology we need. This is technology we also need. This was something else we need. But then we only had about 2 people. Our founding team was just me and my co-founder. So we didn't have any real manpower to be implementing and designing these algorithms. So we had to start with one of them and really try to make a great demo out of it, and to use that to show our potential investors that, hey, this is what we're able to build. This is what we have that's really cutting edge. And by cutting edge, I mean this is very, very efficient, being able to run this deep learning AI model on the phone, on the fly, in real time. Because typically deep learning models are very heavy. They require a lot of computational power. And to be able to run that on the phone, it was very difficult. So we built that demo of the tech. And we started pitching to investors to show them that this is what we want to build. This is what we already have. And we're already in front of the pack.
What were some of the early reactions from the investors when you showed them the solution that you were developing?
Well, this is something I learned beginning, is that you really need some kind of a concept video to show people what you're talking about. No matter how great your idea or how useful or how important it is, if they don't understand what you're talking about, a lot of times they really just need to see something. So for us, of course, because our product is very visual, it's AR navigation. So we started the pitching without any videos. That didn't go too well because people really didn't see, they couldn't feel what we're trying to build until we start building that concept video with a designer, and that really got everything clear. So we were able to raise money from angels. After that, we went to Y Combinator Summit 2018 to really get more mentorship in terms of putting things together. Oh, I also forgot to mention Harvard Innovation Labs was where we started, because that is the incubator at Harvard. They provided so much help. They gave working space, meeting space, mentorship, really helped us understood how to start a company in this very early age. And then we went to YC Summer 2018. That really polished everything for us in a way.
When did you realize you had a business opportunity on your hands? Was it getting into YC? Was it the mentorship from Harvard? Did you have a mentor from the Harvard Business School? Was there one of those incredible moments that, wait a second, we have a business here, we've raised a little money, and now we can scale?
Yeah, I think the important thing also was validation from potential users, because we were building AR navigation on a smartphone. And therefore, we thought, other than people like me who get dumbed down by GPS, which I don't know how to find, maybe I just grab random people on the street, who else might really need this? So we spoke to Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, because they drive all the time and they need navigation to know where to drop off their passengers. They don't want to make wrong turns, because if they do, they're spending extra time on a trip, which of course reduces their overall efficiency, and they make less money, and Uber also makes less money. So that's why we started to show our demo to Uber and Lyft drivers. And they really, really liked it. They were like, most of them, they just grab their phone and be like, hey, what's this app's name? Where can I download this? Is it App Store? I'm like, no, not yet. We're still building this. So I thought we got really good validation from all the people we spoke, all the Uber and Lyft drivers we spoke to, as well as just random people off the street. We try to do market research just around Boston area. So we thought that, hey, this is a real opportunity and we're getting investor interest and our technology was building well. But of course, a lot of technology in front of us that we had to build, because I think one also important thing that at that time, we didn't foresee was that AR navigation is pretty much like self-driving car without driving the actual vehicle. Because if you think about it, if we're overlaying your driving route onto the road on a video for you, of course, this is drastically simplified version of self-driving car. But hey, if we have control of your car, we can also kind of just steer the car to follow the path that we're showing. And then that's a self-driving car, right? So in a way, we're kind of just building this path planning side of self-driving car, but using only a smartphone, using only a single camera, unlike actual self-driving car stack that you have many GPUs and compute processors and many sensors that you can use. So that's something we didn't realize until later. But also, I think that's why our application in AR navigation actually has a wealth of technology behind it. It's not just an app anybody builds. You need a mini self-driving path planning stack all running on such a small device. Yeah.
It's fascinating because AR is the future. And when you co-founded Phiar in 2017, VR was all the rage. Everything was booming. Hollywood studios were jumping on the bandwagon. You know, the Oculus Rift, the HTC Vive, the PlayStation VR. Paramount had a lab built. Fox had a lab built. And it was fun to go in there and play games. It was like, okay, what's next? And then you come along and say, wait a second, AR's next. I'm going to solve a meaningful problem. When you were speaking to the Uber and Lyft drivers, were they saying, whoa, is this virtual reality? Was there any confusion to truly what is augmented reality, since VR was in all the major headlines at that time?
That was an excellent question about people being confused about AR, VR, because that happens all the time, especially during our early years. And not only that, even for people that know about AR, they get confused about Google glasses being an AR glasses versus what AR glasses is supposed to be. And when that happens, they automatically think, oh, AR glasses or AR experience is not going to be a thing because Google glasses totally failed and that was a big company. And I had to explain to them, no, that was not AR glasses. It was just a display showing information directly in front of you. But AR, you really have to have information that is immersed in, combined into the real world as part of the world instead of just a plane of display in front of you. So that's no different from heads-up display. It's not AR. We also got questions like, oh, so there's this company that was called Navdi. Not sure if you know about Navdi, but they used to be around that time, raised a bunch of money. They were actually, they productized their flip-up version of a aftermarket heads-up display for navigation. So their screen was transparent, and they kind of display the navigation map on that transparent screen in front of you, which is really no different from placing your phone in front of you because you're still looking at a 2D map. But people are also confused about that and AR navigation. They felt, whoa, isn't Navdi doing the same thing? I'm like, no, that's absolutely different. They're still using a 2D map, but we're actually overlaying information onto the real world. Like someone has painted this information on the road for you beforehand. So that's very different. Absolutely had to explain a lot of those to people at that time.
I was one of the original Google Glass explorers. I loved my Google Glass. And I used it when I was driving because I would have the navigation above my eye and I didn't have to look down. And I would wear it. I had a young daughter at the time and she's older now. And we went to Disneyland and on the rides and I would videotape the rides. And that was awesome because you're there having this great experience. So for personal family memories and driving, it was awesome. It's a practical use case. It made no sense. And with the navigation system you mentioned, they did not have a very strong policy team. They didn't understand it, but it was all the rage. Every investor was trying to invest in it, but they didn't understand policy. And as you clearly stated, it wasn't AR. And bringing this full circle, boy, oh boy, has the world changed. Today it's 2021. VR is no longer the hottest thing going now. AR is the hottest thing going. Facebook has been rumored to be working on AR glasses. Apple's been rumored to be working on AR glasses. And it seems like the market for AR is getting extremely hot today in 2021. Looks like it will continue into 2022. What are your current thoughts on the current state of the AR market today?
AR is absolutely exciting. I think definitely a ton of people see the potential in it. And therefore, Facebook working on it. Apple is rumored to be working on it. Google rumored are also reviving their program on their own AR glasses. Amazon possibly because they also acquired another smart glasses company. So all those big companies, and of course, not to mention Microsoft, they already have HoloLens and now version 2 out in the market. It's, I think, seeing all those big players devoting resource into this piece of hardware, very, very promising. But like I said, I think it's the hardware and software. We are working on the software side, but we definitely need the hardware to be mature before anybody will find this whole combination useful. Give an example of HoloLens. They're arguably the most successful AR headset vendors out there. However, they know that because hardware is not yet ready. I mean, I'm assuming they know that, and therefore they're really looking at B2B rather than B2C, looking for business opportunities much more. I mean, like B2B side for sure. And that's the issue, is how do we get AR glasses, AR headset itself to be much smaller in size, much larger in field of view, and also longer in battery power and reducing heating issue. So these are all things that needs to be worked out before there's going to be a mass adoption of AR headwear. That's really, not up to us because we are software. And but again, the good thing is all those mega corps are devoting resources into it. So if anybody's going to make that happen, it's going to be them. So I think that's definitely very exciting. But also that's why we kind of switched our focus from mobile AR navigation into automotive, because similar things happen on the phone. We were able to build out the whole thing, the whole technology running at the edge in real time, really lightweight. And the application itself of AR navigation, we tested it with our beta users early 2020. People really loved the experience. However, they complained that the size of the screen on the phone is just too small for that in their car for them to really see the information clearly. And also because the phone, they typically put the phone in their case. And that definitely traps heat, can make the phone heat up after some time. And that's why we looked at automotive. We thought it looks like automotive actually wants this, and more than anybody else, because we already saw Mercedes at that time already shipped their AR augmented video navigation. I think that's that option on their car that's called. So they already shipped it. And we also, from our connections, we know that a lot of other automotive OEMs are also looking for this product on their vehicle. The reason being very easy. Everything in the vehicle is about navigation. And navigation guides you from point A to point B. So whenever you see a new vehicle being advertised about the interior features, they almost always show you how big, how nice, how many more screens they have, and how great their new navigation system looks on their screen. So I think being that kind of solves a lot of problems that we saw in the smartphone side of AR navigation. That's why we took the opportunity to go into automotive. And I think AR has a great opportunity in automotive because, again, OEMs are looking for ways to utilize their big screens as much as they can. And what better than showing real world information, overlay different information on top of it.
Your model, absolutely brilliant. I'm going to go on the record and say you have 18 to 24 months before you're acquired. And we're going to get into why I think that's happening, because what you're working on is brilliant. You're solving a problem, as you mentioned, with the headsets getting hot, the phones overheating, the more and more glass and screens in the car. But the biggest piece of glass in the world for the cars is the windshield. And when you augment that windshield, you're onto something. And there's a little famous company in Cupertino, California called Apple, and that in 2017 filed a patent. And in the patent, they stated an AR system that leverages a pre-generated 3D model of the world to improve rendering of 3D graphics content for AR views of a scene. For example, an AR view of the world in front of a moving vehicle. You found Phiar in 2017. Apple files a patent in 2017 for augmenting the glass. It seems that you and Apple are getting ready for a marriage here.
Well, we'll see. I mean, we started working on our smartphone application on the iPhone, actually. So we definitely already have our application working on iPhones. After we changed our focus into automotive. We switched more onto Android focus. But like you said, Apple not only filed their AR-related patent in 2017, they had a couple more that was granted 2018, 19, and 20. So all of those definitely seem huge validations for us about what people think is important that's upcoming.
And what's really important of this, and Project Titan or the Apple Car, whatever term you like to be used, that is constantly in the news on a regular basis now. If you take that vehicle that Apple is rumored to be developing, I'll say this purely a rumor, we have no facts yet, but I do believe it to be true. Everybody's like, oh, they're going to be a traditional automotive company. They don't understand the automotive industry. They don't understand suppliers. But Apple's not building a car. They're building a platform. And they're going to put an app store in that car. And those windshields and the side will become augmented and will become experiences. And they're going to sell you services on it. And the services business is absolutely going to boom. What are your thoughts on a growing augmented reality services business?
Absolutely. So people are looking at automotive vehicles as the next big platform for software to be as a really software-driven platform. Even the automotive players themselves are really also trying to kind of redesign and quote-unquote upgrade their whole architecture into a more software-driven way. That also helps in terms of how they manage different modules in the car, and can lessen the number of modules, make everything easier to manage and easier to design and maintain and scale. So, of course, being a platform player such as Apple and Google, they both want to get into automotive. Apple rumored to be building their own hardware and software. Google Android Automotive also is being adopted by car makers. And the idea is to make your screen like your smartphone to show different applications that you can use. And with that, I mean, it's my personal belief that of course will be a thing. However, whether it's on a windshield or on a center console display, there's limited amount of things that is useful to the driver if you don't give them camera view. Because when you're driving, you're not expecting to really play games in your car. Maybe your passenger will, but your driver will definitely not, right? And also a lot of utilities, maybe texting or whatever, you won't be using that in your car. But what you need inside the car when you're driving is to know your surrounding, is to really connect yourself with the surrounding. And that ultimately needs a marriage between the camera view and the information that can be overlaid on top of it. AR navigation is only the beginning, is only the first application, but critical and pivotal one that needs to be there so that everything else can be supported on top of it. We absolutely believe in that, and that's why we start with AR navigation, and we're also building that into a platform to support additional applications that will be using cameras.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you know your surroundings, and the commerce, and we're going to get that in a minute, is just absolutely incredible. And as we look towards an autonomous future and we get to SAE level 4, how are you developing Phiar to be platform agnostic? So, for instance, you could be an Acme OEM or you can be an Acme 2 OEM. How are you developing it to be platform agnostic?
Right. So what we could do are several different ways. One is, of course, we can be an application on Google Android Automotive, but that is your window to the world. If you click into that, you can almost think of it like a real world browser in a way, right? Internet browser is one application, but you spend so much time on the browser because that is your connection to the vast information of the world. And our application, if on Android Automotive or Apple Car's own app store, it'll be the same, meaning it will be the browser that gets you to connect to the real world. And then there will be a lot of different use cases in our visual platform in addition to AR navigation. So that is one way of looking at it. The other one, of course, we can also look at having our own infotainment user interface that is more direct to the driver, that they can access the real world camera feed directly through the infotainment. But we're not very limited in terms of how we can work with different players. It's just when the cars themselves get enough cameras onto the cars so we can utilize them.
The cameras are coming, and you're going down this road with several OEMs, and your system is installed and operating in hundreds of thousands of vehicles around the world. At some point, as you scale, will you create an app store that lives on top of the Phiar platform?
So if we are more of a direct user interface to the driver, then yes, we want to support, we want to allow people to build applications on top of our platform. One example, one analogy would be we want to be the Unity to visual applications. Unity isn't really an app store, but they are major players such that whenever you need to build 3D applications, you need to use something like Unity to build your 3D applications with, because they provide you with 3D engines to work with. And without things like Unity, you can't build a 3D application. And that's something that we kind of want to follow, meaning we're going to be exposing our AI and AR engine that's working in the vehicle that can handle the driving speed of you inside the car, that can handle the perception of the outside world. So that allows all the information to be pre-computed by us. And then the application developers themselves, they can take our engines to build their own applications, like how the 3D games are built using Unity. So in that sense, we're not an app store, but we're a critical and required engine for any of the visual applications that happen. With that said, we also could explore app store type of design if we are more driver facing inside the vehicle. But again, I think this is right now we're more focusing on the engine side.
Because when you look at building applications, you're looking at, we're going to go into higher levels of autonomy now. You're going in the vehicle and there's somebody that's going on a vacation, which I think like one of the biggest beneficiaries will be Airbnb, so that you get the autonomous vehicle picks you up at the airport, you get in there, and you say, for instance, you're flying to SFO and you're going to Napa, they can start selling you experiences in there, and then they could tell you the history of Napa Valley, how it started as you're driving by the winery. Oh, this is Opus One, or this is Screaming Eagle, and you have all this incredible thing, and then they can say, oh, if you'd like to have the history of Opus One, that's $3.99, the history of Screaming Eagle, that's $4.99. That creates a massive, massive opportunity to grow services for the travel industry, especially as we come back into a post-COVID world. There's pent-up demand. We've all seen the data. Consumers want to travel. They don't really want to travel. They want experiences. And AR will enable that to enhance that. And then AR will grow the global travel industry and sustain millions of jobs around the world. What are your thoughts on combining AR with travel in vehicle?
Absolutely a key point, a key application and key opportunity for AR inside the vehicles. Exactly like you said, if you're driving by something and maybe your AR screen, whether it's on the windshield or on your center console display, they can show you if this is historical site with information that you can read. But of course, if you're a driver, it's hard for you to read, but that will be beneficial to passengers. And that actually is an important point, because while we believe there's significant commerce opportunity for AR in the vehicles, we also need to make sure the design of how to display those information is non-distracting and safe. Ultimately, because you're still driving. But of course, if the car is driving itself, then it doesn't matter anymore. You actually have all the attention you can look at anything around you. But since self-driving still have some ways to go, I think for now, we're definitely placing an emphasis also in the design of how we display those information.
Smart. Can Phiar work on any type of glass, or are there limitations to what your system can do?
Inside the vehicle, we are able to work on any display. That includes heads-up display, as well as heads-down display, such as the digital cluster and the center console display. Because we're a software company, and therefore they all work similarly to us. The only difference really is that the heads-up display will have to adjust based on the person's head movement, because if you're moving your head, then we need to warp the image so that the visual will still be aligned to the world. Yeah, and also the heads-up display of today, even though it's also gaining a lot of momentum, however, the field of view is still kind of small. So I think what's good is that because we also support regular displays, like I said, digital cluster and center console screens, so we can already support AR navigation over there.
And at CES 2021 this year, Panasonic Automotive announced their collaboration with Phiar for a heads-up display navigation for vehicles. Will you please kindly talk about that collaboration?
Sure. We really appreciate Panasonic support, and we've been enjoying our collaboration with them tremendously. They are very diligent, and they are very, very good at what they do. So, like their announcement, we we provide our spatial AI, which is AI and AR software technology side, to really help the whole AR HUD system to be built. There's a lot of nuances in there, such as integrating into vehicle, using vehicle sensors, adjusting for the head position of people. But, we were able to build something really, really cool. And that seems to be, and we're very confident that that's going to be the future.
When will that collaboration start shipping, and when will it become available in showrooms or for online orders?
So that's the thing about automotive, is that the cycle of development typically takes a while. So when we're working on something today, it's not going to be shipped today. It's not going to be shipped in the next month. So it takes some time, but we are diligently working toward shipping the product and allowing everybody to experience that in their vehicles. So we're both working really hard for that.
And Panasonic, they're a great customer and a great partner, and then they also have a huge aerospace business. I wouldn't be surprised the augmented experiences on airplanes at some point. Are there other collaborations that Phiar's working on that you can discuss?
Yes, we have a number of collaborations directly with OEMs as well as other ecosystem partners. We are unable to disclose because of NDA, but we are able to say Panasonic because they made that announcement. However, I think we're fortunate to have more projects than we can handle. People are very, very exhausted, but we're very happy that our partners have an interest in what we're doing and working with us toward shipping something.
What you're doing is fantastic. And when we got connected, and I was like, oh yes, this is absolutely awesome. And because it's not just maps, but there's the whole commerce thing, which you and I have discussed at length on this and offline as well. But if for a second here, I want to pivot back to maps. How do you create AR maps at scale? So at scale, so if you're going to operate in, say, Boston, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, Miami, do you have to go pre-map it, or how does that work?
So, excellent question. This is definitely more on the technical side. So I think what happens is if your solution requires an HD map behind your solution as your map provider, then you absolutely need to pre-map out those areas in order for you to deploy your system. And that will, of course, make ours and their jobs much easier because we already have these very detailed information about the road and the lanes, the geometry, the turning angle, everything already. However, it's just not yet there. HD map itself is just not yet very well covered in the world. So that's why for us, we started ever since the beginning. Our design is that all we need is going to be the standard definition maps that you're using today, such as Google Maps or Waze, Apple Maps. Those type of maps are what we call standard definition maps, 2D maps. So we use those information, not saying that we're using Google or Apple Maps information, but 2D map information. And then we try to combine that with our world understanding spatial AI to detect the information in front of us. We match them to know where we are. And then we can place information on top of the real world based on that. So this definitely takes a lot more tech than data, but that allows us to ship without needing to pre-map the world.
You're able to scale faster, and you're on the record as stating, to augment the world, you first need to understand it. That's a very powerful statement. Will you talk about that, please?
Sure. That I want to credit one of my friend, Ross Finman. This really came out of that conversation I had with him a couple of years ago. He's also an AR expert. And I think the key thing during that conversation was that, and also what we've been building, is that AR, you don't really get a meaningful AR experiences unless it's married with AI. And exactly like you said, is you have to understand the world first. So to give some examples, if you want to overlay a special for Starbucks in front of you, you have to detect if there's a Starbucks in front of you or where they are, even if you have the map to give you a prior of, okay, Starbucks maybe somewhere here, right? To really give you a precise overlay of Starbucks, you need to detect where Starbucks is. If you want to place something on top of other moving objects that you want to warn people about, for example, if there's a taxi or police car driving by, you need to have a system that understands that's a police car, that's taxi. or pedestrian warnings or anything else. If there's a tree here, you want to decorate this tree in AR, you need to detect this is a tree, right? So ultimately, if you want to overlay things to the world, you first have to have an understanding of what's in front of you. And that's why AI is critical to the success of AR. And in today's AR, most of the AR systems, such as on the phones, they mostly do plane detection so that they can detect the desks area, the ground, the walls, and then they can overlay things onto those planes. And they also started to do occlusion detection with LiDAR, for example, the new Apple iPhones. So that can make AR looks more realistic by occluding objects that are supposed to be in front of it. However, you still don't have enough of an understanding of where are the different things and what they are in front of you. And without that, there's really limited utilities for AR. And that's why, to us, our AR is built on top of the understanding of the world in front of us. And that is where we think is key to unlock the potential of AR.
Without AI, is it possible to unlock the true potential of AR?
Without cutting edge AI, the extensive AI that I talked about, you can still work on AR applications like right now AR Kit and AR Core with the planes that they're able to detect for you, and also with the occlusion to make the experiences more realistic. However, I think that's the reason why currently on the phones, AR is still limited in an indoor room scale kind of environment, and you can step outside and use AR for some applications. However, they just use the ground in front of you, and nothing else really. So, and then a lot of AR becomes games and fun, which are important, but ultimately that is such a small part of what AR can do for you. And therefore, our company's key core DNA is that efficient AI that can understand the world in order for us to power a really meaningful AR experience.
When you can understand the world, you can generate commerce. When you generate commerce, you create jobs, you create businesses, and you've achieved and unlocked the true holy grail of AR. Video games and AR games are great, but it's not going to drive the economy up. And so I'm really like what you're doing. And Chen-Ping, as we look to wrap up this insightful conversation, what would you like our listeners to take away with them? Because I've been completely blown away by what you're doing, because you're building the commerce platform of the future.
Thank you. So yeah, it's a long road ahead of us. We have made a lot of strides. We built something amazing we're really proud of. So we're very excited about the future of how visual applications in AR can help people with both inside automotive and outside. Yeah, so I think we're just really excited about that future.
That's awesome. And as we've heard on today's podcast, the future is bright, the future is autonomous, and the future is augmented reality. Chen-Ping, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Road to Autonomy podcast. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Want to get in touch? Follow us on Twitter at Road to Autonomy or email podcast@brulteco.com. The Road to Autonomy is produced by Brulte & Company. The views and opinions expressed on the Road to Autonomy podcast do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Brulte & Company. The content discussed on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as legal, tax, investment, or business advice.